Hi, I'm Julie Johnson with Firebox Training. Today I'm going to show you how to connect to your Derby database using Eclipse. The first thing I want to do is make sure that my Derby database is installed. Really, it's just a zip file, so you download Derby from the Apache website and just extract it. I extracted mine to the C drive, so I end up with a directory like this. Under the Derby home is a bin directory. And if you take a look there, under the bin directory, there's a file called Start Network Server. If I simply type that in Windows it's not case sensitive, but on Unix and Linux it is. By hitting enter, this starts up the database. And you can see here that it's ready to accept connections on port 1527. So I want to make sure that this window stays alive, so I'll just minimize it. And now I'm going to go to my Data Source Explorer. Now if you don't see the Data Source Explorer, you want to make sure first of all that you launch Eclipse, obviously. If you don't see this window, then just go to Window, Show View, Data Source Explorer. Okay, so here we have database connections. I'm going to right click on here and say New, and here's Derby. I'll call this Derby Connection. And we really can call this database anything we want. I'm going to create a new database. Okay, so I'm going to call the database bookdb. Our Derby is on our local host, port 1527, and I provided a username of student and a password of password. And by checking this, it creates the database. I can also save the password in here. I'm going to test the connection. And my ping succeeded, so that's a good sign. We'll go ahead and hit next. Now, just FYI, if you don't see Derby Client JDBC driver in here, then you might have to click this little icon right here and specify Derby Client JDBC driver 10.2. You'll also have to provide the jar file. So the jar file is called derbyclient.jar, and you need to find that. Let me show you where you're going to find it. Okay, so if we take a look at our lib directory, we have this derbyclient.jar right there. Okay, so I'm going to hit next and then finish. And now our bookdb database is showing up. Now as far as the schemas that are automatically created, here they are. Now what I'd like to do now is right click on my connection, and I'm going to open SQL Scrapbook, and I can place whatever commands I want to in this window. I want to make sure that I select my database right here. And what I'm going to do is actually right click on my properties, and I'm going to say JDBC connection properties, and I'm not going to create the database. So essentially my database has already been created. I don't need to recreate it. Okay, so let me do this again. Okay, so we're right in here, and I have a bunch of SQL statements that I want to execute. And so I can just paste them right in this window right here. Okay, it's just a bunch of insert statements, and now I can right click and execute all. So this will take a minute or two. You'll see that we have the status down here of what's going on, and when this is finished, we're then going to look at our data source again, and we can actually see the tables that have been created. So let's just give this a minute. Okay, so we're done with that. Let's go to our Data Source Explorer. Let's look at our bookdb schemas, and you'll see we have student, and the tables are in here. Okay, I can now close this. I don't need to save the file, so I'll hit no. Okay, so we are now finished. So at this point, if you wanted to create, let's say, a web application, we'll just create a skeleton application. We could do something like this. You'll see here that under the web content, there's the web image directory and there's the live directory. In order for a web application to communicate with the database through that data source, we need to have a couple files in that directory. And so let me show you where to find that. Here's my Derby directory, my live directory. I have Derby Client and Derby Tools. I'm going to just drag and drop, and it's going to copy those files there. So now you see them in there. As far as code goes, this is what your basic code would look like if you had, let's say, some kind of helper Java class that obtained a connection. What you would want to do is actually use the javax.naming package to create what we call an initial context. So you do that, and then you perform a lookup specifying java:"comp/env. And to look up your data source, you say jdbc/ and then the name of your database. So here, this was bookdb. It would have to be exactly as it appears in your data source explorer right here. Once you have your data source connection, then you just call get connection, and you can treat it like any other database connection. Well, I hope you got a lot out of this video tutorial. Please visit our website at www.fireboxtraining.com.